a few seconds just because usually people don't hear me for for a few seconds. So hopefully I waited enough time. This is Raul Ramirez of the Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we help you to wrestle better so that together we keep real wrestling alive. Thank you very much for joining me. I think I'm thinking about maybe doing some kind of like little music intro. So the music will be playing those first few seconds where you can't hear or see anything or whatever. So uh, yeah, I'll work on that. I keep on forgetting, and um, then when I'm about to hit go live, then I remember like, oh, you're not going to be able to hear me for a few seconds. But anyway, so it's been a long time, and I was out of town for a little bit, and I'm back right now. We still have the weekly classes at Fight Science MMA going on, so you feel free to come in. You don't have to join the gym. You can just do the drop-in class. It's Thursday nights, 8:30 p.m. at Fight Science MMA in Los Angeles, California. It's located in the Mid-City area. That is basically in the middle of the city. I think it's a good name for it because it's pretty much right in the center of Los Angeles. So um, we're there, and feel free to come train. We're not at UCLA right now. It's summer. It's summertime for them, so we'll be back in the fall. So definitely keep you posted on that. We've had a student who was not a UCLA student. He joined the class a lot earlier this year. So I've always been saying, outside people can join the UCLA class. It's just I never knew how, but this one person did it, and basically I guess you go to the UCLA recreation website, and then they have the direction. Oh, something happened with the video. All right, am I back on? Okay, so we crunched the numbers. I just put a lot of interesting evidence and stuff together, and then what I did was I had it compiled into like a podcast format, like a little explainer uh, thing. So what I want to talk about today is the new no-gi jiu-jitsu meta, and we'll kind of like I'll show you the little like podcast thing about it. It's short; it's only about 6 minutes, and then we'll talk about it after whether or not it has anything to do with catch wrestling. Okay, so let's go ahead and just dive into it, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, here we go.
You know, when most people think of a game of chess, they picture like a quiet room, two players sitting perfectly still, just calculating moves in total silence.
Right, a very civilized, predictable battle of the minds.
Exactly. But imagine you're playing chess, and right in the middle of your perfectly planned opening, your opponent just grabs a rook, jumps over the table, and wrestles you to the floor.
Yeah, that would definitely change things.
Right. Well, welcome to the 2026 Nogi Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Meta. Today, we're doing a deep dive into that exact chaos using a stack of our sources. We've got recent training blogs, technical breakdowns, and even academic time motion studies to give you the ultimate cheat sheet on modern grappling.
And that chaos of getting tackled during a mental chess match, well, it isn't an accident. It's really the result of the first major shift we see in the sources, which is the total collapse of the boundary between wrestling and BJJ.
Like they're just blurring together now.
Completely. I mean, historically, the emphasis was heavily on pulling guard, right?
Yeah.
Sitting down, playing defensively off your back. But that is rapidly giving way to the wrestle up.
The wrestle up. So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, bottom players are basically just no longer accepting bad positions. Instead of hanging out there, they transition directly from a defensive posture into an offensive takedown.
Oh, wow. So it's like a boxer suddenly deciding to, throw elbows or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You aren't just defending their strikes anymore. You're actively changing the physical rules of engagement right from the ground.
Right, and they kind of have to change those rules because, honestly, getting off the bottom is overwhelmingly difficult against modern top players.
Makes sense.
So the bottom player needs a massive equalizer. And that brings us to leg locks, specifically heel hooks.
Oh, man, heel hooks. And the sources mention innovators like Lachlan Giles, right? pioneering systems to make those happen safely, like the K-Guard and the outside sound Nakaku.
Yeah, and those aren't just fancy names,
Yeah.
Outside Sankaku essentially means wrapping your legs into a triangle around their leg.
Right, to completely isolate the knee.
Exactly. It allows a smaller grappler to safely entangle and trap a much larger opponent,
Yeah.
without just getting completely crushed.
And what really proves how dangerous these leg locks are is the data.
The data is wild.
Yeah, there's this time motion study from Sheffield Hallam University. It found that athletes who won via lower body submissions spent exactly 0 seconds in a dominant position prior to the tap.
0 seconds. Think about that.
Wait, I have a major issue with this, though. If you don't need positional control to end a match, doesn't that completely invalidate the whole foundational BJJ mantra of, position before submission?
Well, I mean, it doesn't invalidate it, really redefines it.
How so?
Because control is no longer just about, pinning someone's back to the mat with your chest. It's about restricting the specific joints needed to escape.
I see.
You're controlling the lever, which is the leg, rather than having to hold down their entire body.
That is terrifying. If I'm a top player, I would be absolutely terrified to even engage with a bottom player who could just snap my knee from a so-called neutral position.
And that fear is exactly what forces top players to completely evolve their guard passing.
They have to adapt.
Right. They now flow seamlessly between 3 pathways to bypass the legs. They go around, under, and directly through them. It's this constant trilemma.
Like Gordon Ryan's loose passing system.
Yeah.
Right? The sources talk about his use of J-point camping.
Yes, the jeopardy point.
Right, J-point for jeopardy.
Exactly. So the top player basically hovers just past the opponent's hip line. You don't commit your weight forward.
Because if you do, you expose your own legs to those heel hooks.
Exactly. But by hovering there, you keep them in constant jeopardy of being passed.
I love this concept so much. It's like a medieval siege. You don't foolishly rush the castle gates where they can just pour boiling oil on you.
Definitely not.
You safely set up camp right at the gates, make them carry all that tension of the threat, and just wait until the enemy panics and makes a mistake.
And to execute that kind of siege without panicking yourself, the 2026 training room has become fiercely analytical.
Ugh.
I mean, gyms are now using neurograppling.
Which sounds totally like sci-fi.
It really does.
But it's actually cognitive load training, right?
Yeah. They simulate high-stress scenarios while forcing the athletes to solve, like visual or physical puzzles.
Wow.
The whole goal is to reduce decision latency. So when a leg lock suddenly appears, your brain just processes the defense reflexively without freezing.
That is intense. And they're even applying AI biomechanics to this now. The sources detailed how they calculate exact submission torque using actual physics formulas.
Right, by knowing the exact optimal angle of the joint, an athlete doesn't have to waste energy just muscling through a defense.
They just apply pressure at the precise degree where the opponent has 0 structural leverage.
Exactly. And that specific angle calculation, it saves them up to 30% in physical exertion.
Honestly, though, treating the human body like a high-performance math equation, it kind of feels like it strips the art out of martial arts, doesn't it?
Well, I see why you'd think that. But if you look at it from the athlete's perspective, it actually elevates the art by turning feeling into fact.
Oh, interesting point.
Yeah, by understanding the exact biomechanics, they aren't just grinding until something breaks. They train smarter, they prevent catastrophic joint injuries, and they perform with surgical precision.
Well, so what does this all mean for you listening? Whether you actually train on the mats or just, love the pure strategy of the sport, modern no-gi is a lightning-fast chess match of biomechanics and hybrid wrestling.
Yeah, a chess match where your opponent is constantly trying to break your ankles.
That is the reality. And I want to leave you with this final, slightly terrifying thought. If AI is already calculating optimal torque and joint stress to save 30% exertion, how long until an algorithm invents a devastating new submission that the human brain hasn't even conceived of yet?
That's an interesting question at the end there. I think, really, with regards to doing a new or creating a new kind of submission hold, I think it's all about controlling the limb, and then being able to find the angle to create the lock and all that. But so it'd be cool to see if it can create something new, but I kind of don't think it would be completely new. It'd be one of our are like the main categories where you have like the ankle lock, the knee bar, or whatever, hip lock. I think we already know about the different joints and the locks and stuff, but maybe a new angle or something. But with that being said, we have a few points that I kind of want to emphasize that where like is like because some people say like that modern no-gi is just catch wrestling, and I for years I've been saying that it is not. And so when you kind of crunch the numbers, or not necessarily crunch the numbers, but at least like kind of like get a lot of the like modern training data, like of what major no-gi gyms are doing. Like you're seeing, I think it still validates my idea that modern no-gi is still not catch wrestling. So even though maybe some tournaments will allow neck cranks or something, sure, but that still doesn't make it catch wrestling. But they are doing some things that are maybe are more catch wrestling like, where it's like a lot of people are going for Achilles submissions now, or like ankle locks, which I think is actually pretty interesting because again, in catch wrestling, the leg locks a lot of times they were uh, done to like, get someone to roll over onto their back, and so it's like it's still control. And so like how they were talking about like, or is modern nogi going against the jujitsu mantra of position over submission, because like so many people are going for leg locks and not even trying to pass guard. So I think even in the little thing that I made for you guys, I think they even kind of point out where it's like, no, the whole thing was always position over submission, because you can't just like get a submission without being in a proper position to like get the actual lock, right? So you can't just like maybe put your hand up to someone and then their elbow breaks or something like that. You always have to get into position where you can break it. So uh what I think that a lot of the early jujitsu people were talking about is like they were really body. You can still get control over the other person's body by um like controlling the leg, controlling the limbs and stuff. So that's definitely the way you want to be thinking about it. And that in that way, it's similar to the catch wrestling philosophy, but it's not necessarily like catch wrestling. And the other thing would be that they mentioned was like the wrestle up, and um the like, so that would still be like more of a amateur wrestling kind of aspect where going for a double leg, or even like a high crotch, where now someone will go in for a high crotch and then they'll stand up and then try to take the person over, or even going for a double leg where they'll go knee over toe, then stand up with the leg and then try to push the person over. uh, that in my experience with catch wrestling with say like Billy Robinson, and also in Wigan with Roy Wood and all the other great people there. A lot of it was about getting the person down and then keeping them down. So that's really the more of like the catch wrestling way. And even with John Strickland on the East Coast, the actual like American lineage for catch wrestling, um, a lot of it was about getting the match to the ground, but almost by any means necessary, or even if you just kind of dive in for the leg and seeing if you can drag the person down, because your mat wrestling should be so good that you should be able to win. So that's the whole idea. And so then going to the ground and then standing back up and then trying to go back to the ground, that's not necessarily like the the way it's done, right? The MO or whatever, like the the way of catch wrestling. So it's like getting the or adding the wrestle up to the whole idea of jujitsu or modern nogi. It would be an influence from modern amateur wrestling, which yes, it granted it did come from catch wrestling, but over the decades things have changed so much regarding like points and whatnot. So it is that's why things have changed. And that's why it's not like the the kind of like a real catch wrestling like way. So Noogie is add it's almost like as it adds wrestling, it's adding the amateur wrestling. So it's doing kind of like aspects that are kind of touching on catch wrestling, but it's still not catch wrestling. All right, let's go ahead and get to some of your questions. LA boy. Is the full Nelson illegal for catch wrestling or wrestling competition? Wrestling competition, yes. And we really should, like in our tournaments for Catch Wrestling Alliance, we don't allow people to do a full Nelson, especially on the ground, um, because we've had many people, or like not in our not in our tournaments, but over the years, many people have gotten severe neck damage with the full Nelson on the ground. So what that means is like not standing, like not how you see it in pro wrestling, but usually when you would go for it, you'd have someone in referees or like turtle position, and then you go for it and you drive their body over their neck. Ultimately, it's still driving their body over to their shoulders to pin them, but many times people's necks can't take that pressure. So, yeah, it's best to just not do it in competition if you want to be safe. And so then the other thing that was mentioned, like one of the very last things that was mentioned in the video was like safety and all that. So yeah, I know that catch wrestling can be really, a lot of people would describe it as brutal or whatever, but if you're practicing it, you gotta be safe with it. You don't go too crazy, don't go too fast and stuff, because ultimately you want people to practice with, so you want your training partners to be there with you week after week so that you can become more proficient and so that you can be able to do this for a long time. It's not about like ending someone's career and stuff like that. It's about having fun and doing this for a long time and getting really good at it. I think that's one of the things that I thought was really cool about what some modern nogi gyms are doing is they're trying to train the reaction. So I think that's one of the things that goes back to even one of the greatest catch wrestling coaches, Billy Riley, back in Wigan. He had a quote where he was saying like if you're in a match and you think that you can do a technique, it's already too late to do that technique. So when I saw that some gyms are training the reaction to like a submission hold or a leg lock or whatever, they're training the like kind of that reaction time to get out of the hold. That's kind of one of the things you do want to be thinking about, where it's like you can do something without thinking about it. You can that's what's going to help you to not only escape but to also do counter moves and just be more effective, right? Because so like even for the leg locks, there are so many ways to escape that a lot of times people get caught when they don't know the escapes, right? So it's not just that they're like completely trapped with no way to escape. A lot of times there's still some way, but if you're a little too late on getting there or thinking about it, then that's when you can get caught and submitted. So that's one of the things I thought was pretty cool, where some gyms might be focusing on that reaction so that your reaction is just that and not like a conscious like, oh, I see that I can do a move. And a lot of times when you're talking it over in your mind, then it becomes too late to get out. So that's one of the things you want to be like kind of training or um and I think that does come with like training over time, ultimately. Like, so if you're sparring often, then that can help you to get a little bit better at the reaction time. And granted, it's like when you're in a match, you're not really going to be able to do things. So say like if you learn a technique a certain way in a match, a lot of times that's it doesn't happen perfectly like how you've trained, but at least keeping your mind flexible so that you can react without thinking too much about it. That's what's going to help you to escape or to counter effectively. So with that, I thought that was pretty cool that some gyms are really emphasizing that that little aspect, and it is a very little aspect. So I think to get to where you can train that, I think you have to spend a lot of time training the actual, say, like the leg lock. You have to train it, and then train the escape, and then train that reaction to when you can feel that you're going into that lock. And I would say another thing you would want to train is actually like say like the wrestling defense, right? So um, you're making it harder for people to even get to your legs. That would be another thing you want to train so that hopefully you never have to use that defense. But that's basically a lot of things you have to train. So that's why it's like getting better at something. It takes time, and I think that goes back to then what one of the greatest catch wrestlers of all time, Frank Gotch, he wrote in his book. So he wasn't even age 40 yet, but in his book about wrestling, in the introduction, he said that he felt that the optimal age for a wrestler is age 40 because he said that all those years prior, working on technique and all that, and like sparring and all that, at age 40, that's where that technique meets kind of like the almost like wisdom, but I can't remember exactly how he stated it, but it's like kind of like the thinking. You're not when you're young. A lot of times you're overthinking things, or you're a little too excitable. So he felt like when you're about age 40, everything's kind of mellow, and your thoughts are a little bit more smooth. Your way of thinking isn't too excitable. So when the technique level, high level technique meets high level mental processing, then that's like the peak. All right. So Frank Gosh felt that that was age 40. So, and he, unfortunately, he didn't even make it to age 40. He passed away before then, but he was already looking forward to that age, and he was already uh, so good at wrestling. Um, so I think he was thinking that he's only going to get better, or that he could have gotten much better, um, had he reached that age. So that's one thing to think about. So it's like you do see like phenoms or whatever, like some people getting good at something really quickly, but say in my experience, like recently we had a student who I was training who got really good at kickboxing and won the national kickboxing tournament a couple months ago. But she was putting in like so much time and training. So it's like we were training about 4 to 5 times a week, and um, but she wasn't a complete non-athlete. She had spent time doing a lot of gymnastics, and so then the she wasn't uncoordinated. She already knew how to use her body, so it was really easy to add like new movements because it wouldn't take too long for her to adapt. So um, these so you can see people get better quickly, but a lot of times it's like there's something there that allows them to absorb new techniques quickly, or maybe there's like that mental flexibility so you can absorb like the ways to get out, or finding these patterns and then seeing how you can use them to escape or to get an advantage over someone. So there's a lot that goes into becoming great at grappling or whatever sport. In this case, a couple of months ago with kickboxing. So, but ultimately, you got to be putting in the time. It's not just going to be like, like couple months are just like, it reminds me of that movie Karate Kid, where the original one, the first one, where it's like the Daniel is like looking at some karate magazines and trying to do it, and it's not quite working out for him. Keeps getting beat up by the bullies at school and stuff. So it wasn't until he actually put the time in with a real instructor, and he put a lot of time in, right? So it was like every day doing something. So uh, he got good fast. At least of course that's movies, but it's just an example. But the idea is like uh, these things take time, and if you see someone get better faster, a lot of times they're putting in a lot of the work. They're putting in a lot of work to get better. So it might seem like they're getting good quickly, but it's relative to the amount of work they're putting in. So if you want to get good fast, you got to be putting in the time. And so there's a lot of cool things that I think gyms are doing with regards to nogi. But ultimately, my opinion is that um, it's still not catch wrestling. And of course, I enjoy doing nogi grappling and all that. And like a couple years ago now, I won the Pan Am Jiu-Jitsu tournament and all that. So I enjoy it. I do it. I was gonna do it again, but I was training the student to do the tournament, the kickboxing tournament. So I'll see if there's any cool tournament for the going on the rest of the year. Uh, we'll see what's happening. We've got a few months left in the year, so we'll get back into the nogi jits and stuff. So, but if you have any questions, if you have any more questions like LA boy, feel free to ask. And let's try to get back on the horse with regards to doing these regular podcasts. So if you have any topic that you'd like us to go over, just comment. Also, we had some comments recently. Some of you are wanting to do or see more stuff regarding like exercises for wrestling and also like stretching for wrestling. So we can totally do that. So like strength training and stretching. So people are asking about ways to basically take care of your body, because again, you should be able to wrestle for the longest time. Like my coaches were in their 70s, and I've had students who are also in their 70s. So you should be able to do this for many decades, especially if you enjoy it. So there's really, it's all about taking care of yourself and training safely. And so I think maybe we'll do something about that, since we have been getting comments about that first. But if you have any other questions, let me know. Actually, we have one more came in. All right, LA boy. What would the highest rank in catch, if any, for example, like a jiu-jitsu black belt? So in catch wrestling, just like in boxing, there are no real ranks. A lot of times, back in the day, right? A lot of times it was like you had your coaches and they would set up matches, and then you can maybe do just like how professional boxing is, where it's like you keep fighting and winning, and then ultimately you get like your shot at the like the world championship or like the national championship. Um, so it was never truly like a tournament style, but so in that way, like Western martial arts, like catch wrestling, boxing, they don't really have belts because that's like a Asian thing. And but say like for us, and even like my buddy John Strickland on the East Coast, who has like the Frank Gotch lineage of catch wrestling, they usually you just do like levels. So I guess similar to belts, but just they don't call them belts. It's not colored, so it's just like levels. Um, so it would be up to the individual. But a lot of times it's like kind of almost like in jujitsu, where it's like even though they have belts, they like if you want to advance, I get the next belt sooner. Like if you're competing, then it's like, and you're doing well in competition, then they can't deny that you're doing well and you're actually putting all the techniques into practice. So then usually you can get promoted faster depending on the school, but chances are you will get promoted faster if you're competing regularly. Uh, so I think I would say that this would be the same for catch wrestling. Like, say if you're doing catch wrestling and then you're competing in no-gi and winning regularly, there'd be no excuse for like someone to not consider you more high level. But the only like little caveat that I put to that would be like if you're calling yourself a catch wrestler and then you go to compete in jujitsu and then like you lay down on your back and you're doing everything from guard and trying to do closed guard and all that stuff. Um, then that's not really like a catch wrestling way of winning. So if you're going in and winning in a more of a catch wrestling way, then yeah, then I would say that yeah, you're doing catch wrestling in a jiu-jitsu tournament or whatever. Um, and so that would be the only little caveat that I'd add. The little the little asterisk or whatever that I'd put on there. Um, but yeah, so like Western martial arts don't have belt systems. So, any other questions? Feel free to ask right now. So just know that so if you're in LA, remember you can always train with us at Fight Science MMA every Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. You don't have to join the gym. You can just drop in. Uh, everyone's welcome. Just got to sign the waiver. Also, we're it's summertime, so the classes aren't going on at UCLA right now, but we will be back in the fall. Um, if you're in another country, feel free to check out our website. We have a bunch of really cool membership things, but also like one-off courses, like our pressure pass system, so you can use a catch wrestling based way to pass guard. I have two different ones there. So two different aspects of catch wrestling that are very useful to pass guard. Um, we have a lot of things. Also, if you're on the East Coast, go ahead and check out my good buddy John Strickland, American Hook Wrestling. He's one of the people who actually have a real catch wrestling lineage that we can trace. And one of the things that was really cool about training with him and his students, like Matt Tran, is that like there were so many techniques that um, like just overlapped with regards to like what would be taught by someone like a master like Roy Wood, and then a master like Billy Wicks. So it's pretty cool to see that like these techniques that were passed down. They're you can it's almost like the archaeological evidence where you can see the progression and how things traveled from one continent to the next. So that was very, very cool. So if you ever get a chance and you're in South Carolina, train with John Strickland. But if not, you can always go online and stuff to our website, check it out. We got a bunch of stuff up there for you. Um, yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll try to get back to doing the podcasts regularly. Sorry, we were a little out of town for a little bit, so but we're back. So all right. So main thing, our whole goal is to help you to wrestle better so that together we can keep real wrestling alive. So we'll be here for that. We'll be here for you. So we'll see you next time.